for the last month. He said to help me down the stairs, help me into the bed.
I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Commission of February 20th, 2019. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, is available at the front of the chambers with the clerk. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. If you parked in the parking garage across the street to the north, the gate is open and no parking coupons are needed. Out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, the commissioners and the staff, cellular phone usage is not permitted in these chambers during any portion of this meeting. We will appreciate your cooperation. Please note the Planning Commission action today is final on the following agenda items. 1.3, Special Permit 19002, 1.4, Special Permit 19003, 1.5, County Special Permit 19005, and 4.2B, Use Permit 19001. Any aggrieved person may appeal final action of the Planning Commission to the City Council or the County Board by filing a notice of appeal with the clerk within 14 days following the action of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission action on all other items is a recommendation to the City Council or County Board. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held January 23rd, 2019. Is there a motion?
Move to approve, Campbell.
Second, Beckius.
Jerry?
Okay, Beckius, Campbell,
Yes.
Finnegan,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there is a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I will ask Jerry to read all of the consent agenda items into the record. Once those items are read, she will ask if there is anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Jerry, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
Yes, thank you. I would note that item 1.4, Special Permit 19003, is being removed from the consent agenda for a separate public hearing. Okay, item 1.1 is Text Amendment 19001, amending sections 27.51.030 and 27.51.090 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to the minimum total district size requirement for properties zoned as I-3 Employment Center District, and repealing said sections of the Lincoln Municipal Code as hitherto existing. Item 1.2 is change the zone 19003 from AG Agricultural District to H3 General Commercial District on property generally located at 7480 North 56th Street. And I would note that there was a minor revision submitted via a staff memorandum that was distributed today. Item 1.3 is Special Permit 19002, allow for the construction of a garden center on approximately 20 acres more or less on property generally located at 120th Street and Van Dorn Streets. Again, this is final action on this item unless appealed to the City Council within 14 days. Item 1.5 is County Special Permit 19005 to allow for a 199-foot, 6-inch tall personal wireless facility on property generally located southeast of the intersection of Branch Oak Road and North 141st Street. Again, this is final action on this item unless appealed to the City Council within 14 days. And item 1.6 is Street and Alley Vacation 18005 to vacate P Street stub from the east right-of-way line of 70th Street to approximately 100 feet to the east, generally located at North 70th and P Streets. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these consent agenda items?
I don't see any.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on any of these items that I just read? Please stand and state that item.
I don't see anybody that's here to talk about any of those, so I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second, Campbell.
Jerry?
Okay. Beckius?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
There are no requests for deferral, so we will now proceed to public hearings. The staff will make a brief presentation. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and then the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. If during your testimony you have copies of documents or materials you would like distributed to the Planning Commission members and/or included as part of the record, please provide that information to the clerk for distribution. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes, then you will have 1 minute to wrap up your testimony. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the Commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Jerry, please call the first public hearing item.
Okay, the first item is 3.1, Special Permit 19003, for the reconstruction and expansion of a nonconforming fourplex building, including waivers on property generally located at 2910 N Street. Staff recommendation is for conditional approval, and this is final action on this item unless appealed to the City Council within 14 days. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed?
No.
Steve Hendrickson with the Planning Department. This is a special permit to rebuild a non-conforming use. There was a fourplex on this site. The fourplex is currently zoned R4, but it was previously zoned R5 when it was built, so it was a legal conforming use. It was rezoned in 2006 as part of a larger Woods Park downzoning. The property to the south of N was rezoned from R4 to R2, and the properties north of N up to O Street from 27th over to approximately the Health Department building all were R5 and were rezoned to R4. We've recommended approval of the expansion of the non-conforming use, the expansion being basically a reconstruction of the fourplex that was destroyed by a fire within the last year. They are asking the setback to the south along N Street would have been 12 feet. They're asking to reduce that 2 feet to 10 feet to give them a little more space in reconstructing the units. The setback to the west would be kept at 25 feet. Previously, there was a parking lot on the east side of the building that held approximately 4 stalls. It did not appear to be a well-defined parking area. As part of the new plan, they would have a paved parking lot that would have 5 stalls. Any more additional stalls would either have to go further into the front yard setback or would probably fairly significantly reduce the space that was previously occupied by the fourplex. The fourplex is being approximately rebuilt in the footprint that it was previously. So we think that the increase of going from 4 to 5 stalls is at least adding 1 more additional stall, but it does not meet the 8 required stalls that you would have by today's standards, which is 2 per dwelling unit. There was a letter that was received that had some questions about neighborhood design standards and historic, the Landmark Historic District to the south. And so with me is Ed Zimmer, who will answer those questions.
I think the heart of the matter is that this property sits immediately north of the historic district boundary. It is N Street. The area to the south is the East Lincoln Elm Park Landmark District. This is just north of that. The standards we can apply and must apply are the neighborhood design standards, not the preservation guidelines of the historic district. The response you got, I think, stated well the kind of standards in general terms that we would apply within the historic district. But I would offer to you that this historic district boundary was properly drawn, that north of N Street there's considerably more mix of mid-50s and later buildings, and south of N, with a few exceptions, it principally is those built as single family, some of them now in multiple use, but principally built as single-family. And I think we drew that line really where the development of the area would strongly suggest we draw that line. So we have to apply the neighborhood design standards to this property. They state not that we look at the whole character of the broad area, but that we look more closely, more focused at the same and facing block face. Not even the whole blocks, but the block face. Because this building and the one to the east of it and one of them across the street to the south of it all face in, it seems like that really is fairly the predominant direction that we would look at for this block. We look somewhat around to the 29th Street side, but that isn't really where this building or the next one north of it had oriented. There's really only then 3 buildings that set the context on those same and facing block, and 2 of those are more recent apartments that are excluded from the historic district. One of them is an historic district building, but it happens to face west, so it doesn't even really strongly address this parcel. They do need to meet the neighborhood design standards. That's where you have a condition in your report that they screen that parking lot of 5 stalls because neighborhood design standards say above 4 stalls the parking lot should be screened. But it doesn't directly speak to the matter that zoning speaks to and that your special permit request speaks to of the number of parking stalls or that 2-foot reduction of the front yard. Those really aren't addressed in the neighborhood design standards. They're at the heart of zoning and of the special permit. One of the items mentioned in the response you got spoke about porches, and in that neighborhood, if we were dealing with historic standards, or if we were on a block where the same and facing block had a majority of porches, we could and would require a porch on this building. But that isn't the condition of this same and facing block, so we can't, by the neighborhood design standards, require that porch. There is language that buildings over 50 feet long have some kind of relief to more closely approximate the buildings, and when we review this for building permit, we will address that matter on this building. And a porch or a porch gesture of some kind may be the proper solution there, but we have to draw that from what we're authorized in the neighborhood design standards, not from the broader design characteristics that go with the historic district. I'll be happy to answer any questions about how we reached this conclusion or what the comparison of the 2 standards are.
I have a question.
Certainly.
You were talking about the need for relief for buildings that are longer than 50 feet, and I'm curious, what is the scale of relief that you...
The neighborhood design standards speak of 2 possibilities. One, that there be a inset in the front wall and in the roof planes. What we do in the neighborhood design standards typically is say, here's a standard. If you meet this precisely, whether we like it or not, we have to accept it. Or you can offer alternatives. And so they can either create a true break at the center of some kind, or by differentiation in some way, sometimes that's dormers or a porch or something else that fits their program, they can achieve a similar result. So there is some design flexibility and a stated standard as well.
Thank you.
Ed, as they submitted their proposed drawings, there is it looks like maybe a small, I don't want to call it a porch, entrance.
Portico?
Sure. Would that suffice for that break that's needed, or?
I think we'd want to see more than that. But these drawings, while they give us an idea of where they're headed, aren't the building permit application. And I believe it's correct, Steve, that these aren't directly being approved by the special permit. They're there for information, but you're not attaching these to the special permit.
So something like stairs to enter the building wouldn't be enough for?
What we're really trying to do is create that little bit smaller scale. So something that is more, that divides it a little more is really what we're seeking, what the standards talk about.
Okay. When I read this, I was also concerned about the neighborhood design standards, but my concern was more along the west side, because we're going to have kind of a blank wall facing there, and I know that's how it was previously. I mean, they do have a couple of windows on there. So you're saying even though the neighborhood design standards would apply, because of those 3 buildings that are close to it, we wouldn't require anything on that west side for,
The neighborhood design standards talk about corner buildings, first stating that the preference is that they orient to the predominant direction within their block face, and I think they're doing that. And at the other side, meet the rest of the standards. And at this face of the building, what that standard would say is at least 2 windows per story. They wouldn't be required to have a entrance on that side, and they wouldn't be required to have a porch by the neighborhood design standards. We wouldn't make that a false predominant facade, but rather you can't have a blank wall. You must have the relief of the windows, but that's really what we could require there.
even though if you look up and down that street, most of those houses have front porches.
Yes, because we have to really kind of, what we're allowed is to count that it has to be a majority of the total on the same and facing block face, and that doesn't require a porch on this site.
Okay. Any other questions for Ed right now, or? No? Okay, thank you, staff.
Thank you.
We'll go to testimony from the applicant.
Yeah, that's good.
Hello.
Hi.
This is new to me. This is my first time doing this, so
Can you please state your name and address?
Aaron Bird.
Okay. And your address, sir?
Home address?
Yes.
1358 Shire Lane, Eagle, Nebraska, 68347.
Thank you.
Aaron, could you tell us a little bit about the project that you're
Sure.
proposing today?
Sure. The main purpose of what we're trying to accomplish is, one, someone has an annuity, some type of a retirement, so forth, and also to provide newer housing to lower to middle income families. And this came across, and after doing my due diligence, it seemed like the right thing to do. So moved forward and went through the process with the planning and zoning department as well as with building and safety, and thought everything was going to be smooth sailing until a letter from yesterday. So here we are. That's predominantly what we're doing.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It looks like that we're increasing parking a little bit on this site from what it was previously. Question for you, do you happen to know the fourplex that was there before, how many bedrooms did each one of those units have in that fourplex? Do you know, Aaron?
I believe there was 2 2-bedrooms and there was 2 1-bedrooms.
Okay.
So that would be a total of 6 if it was in today's
Sure.
time.
Okay. Perfect.
yeah.
Thank you. That's all I have.
So from your comments, I'm taking that you weren't the owner previously
No.
of the building that burned down?
No.
Okay. So you're just trying to rebuild pretty
Remove
much in
and
the same
replace.
footprint?
Correct. It seemed to be the area, everything seemed to fit. So that's why we moved forward with it.
Okay. Any other questions?
Based on the conversation that we just had with Ed Zimmer about design standards, neighborhood design standards and relief, and are you open to making those kinds of changes to the front facade?
We have already made some changes to it. There is a revision on the plan. What you have is basically a construction prototype, but it is now morphed into something more aesthetic, what you guys are suggesting. I have that plan, but I don't have it here with me. But yes, I'm willing to address some of the aesthetic.
How did you do that with your new plan?
The architect.
No, I mean, what did you do?
What we did is, instead of one gable over the front of the middle, we separated and went with a gable over this half and a gable over this half. And then we did the interior with different multicolor siding, so you can see the depth and you'll see the difference between and then the side that you guys were talking about, it is also going to be double all the way up with a different material in the gut. So it will not look so office-like with the 4 windows.
Sounds nice.
So it's, sure.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions right now?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any testimony in support of this application? Okay, any testimony in opposition?
Hi, I'm Jane Sebi. I live in Woods Park, 320 South 29th Street. I'm on the board of the Woods Park Neighborhood Association, but I'm appearing on my own today since we haven't taken a position on this one way or the other. We have publicized it on our Facebook page, and there has been some degree of comment about concern about what's going in there and how it might look. I would like to commend the gentleman here who has proposed the plan. It does look really nice. Our concern, of course, is we live in an older neighborhood, and we would really like everything to look as natural as possible. And this, does this work? Can I put that up? Okay. I don't know, I think you probably all have the copy of this. Oh, okay.
It's magic.
Yeah, magic. Okay, this is South 29th Street, this is N Street, this is the area proposed for construction. I would just point out that South 29th Street has a lot of traffic. People avoiding the 27th and O Street intersection, we get a lot of traffic through there. N Street is also heavily trafficked because people going to the health department. So this, even though it's inside the neighborhood, is seen a lot by the general public. And as well, the neighbors will pass it quite often. Just about everybody north of Randolph will be going past there. Ed has already talked about this design standard problem. And the reason the design standard problem was solved or was addressed was because there were so many of these apartment complexes that were slipped into the older neighborhoods. So that's why we're really pushing that. I mean, in and of itself, this looks like a really nice plan, but we would really, really like to have it match the neighborhood if at all possible. Although Ed said there aren't any houses facing it that have porches, I would point out that the house across the street does, both of these over here do, both of these over here do, all of these do. So if you look at the immediate area within a 1 block surround, 3/4 of the properties have porches. Now, we're not asking for a full front porch or anything, but something that makes it look a little bit more like it belongs historically in the neighborhood. The other thing I would point out is that reducing the number of spaces, or actually just adding one, when you've got 4 4-bedroom units, if you rent those out to, say, a couple or to 2 individuals, almost everybody has a car these days. And that's a big problem in our neighborhood. I would point out that on N Street there is no parking on the south side. On 29th, one of these 2 properties is, I believe, some sort of a halfway house. And so there are a number of people that live there, and they're parking all over. These, I believe, are both rental units. They also have a number of people parking everywhere. This is a big apartment complex. While it does have a fair amount of off-street parking, it has not enough off-street parking. This is a rental unit. The number of spaces it needs, generally they park in front, and they do have a little driveway back there. But again, a rental unit brings people, more people in than you might in a regular residential district. So we are left with the only place people can park in this facility is on the north side of N Street, and there's at best room for 3 vehicles total. And they can be taken up already by the number of people that are already in the neighborhood, much less any additions that would come about from this larger apartment complex, or large compared to what it was before. This is also an apartment complex. I'm not sure, there are 4 units, I'm not sure how many bedrooms. They only have 4 spaces off-site as well, so they could be parking along that street too. So we're concerned about the amount of traffic, especially given the amount of, or the amount of parking given the amount of traffic that goes through that street. So those were kind of our two big issues, or at least my two big issues, but things that we kind of try and keep an eye out on the neighborhood in general. So, any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thanks for
Thank you.
coming up, Jean. Any other testimony in opposition? No? Okay. Staff questions? I have one. I don't know who wants to come up, Steve or Ed. Can you talk about how when a building burns down or something happens to it, tornado hits it, how they have the right to build it back according to what was there before?
Yes, particularly with those that have been downzoned, there was text put in right before 2006. At that time, there's a lot of downzonings being proposed, and so we added text to make it clear that the number of units you were licensed for at that time is basically the amount of units that you're allowed to rebuild. So in this circumstance, it's not perhaps an absolute guarantee, but I think it would be pretty much close to that you're looking to, you legally did the 4 units there. The character of the area north of N Street has a lot of 4 and 5 and some duplexes as well. And so that you're allowed to rebuild to the 4, not to what you might have done under the R5, but even though the R4 would not allow a 4-plex, as a result of the down zoning, you're still allowed to redo the 4. We look at a lot of our down zonings is not that they were intended when you went from like R5 to R4 to that eventually that area would be just like an R4 character. It was more that you were just trying to freeze the number of units that were in that area. It had been maximized. More units in the area would not be an advantage to the neighborhood. It might actually be detrimental. But yet you weren't trying to, over time, reduce the density in that particular area down. And that is the case with all of the down zonings that happened at that time and why that provision was put in. So yes, we think the 4 is what is appropriate here and what they really have the right to ask for. So mainly it's a matter of questions in regards to parking or setback.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you. Applicant, do you want to say anything in rebuttal? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, I would entertain a motion then.
Move approval, Beckius.
Second, Washington.
Thank you to the, for the information and the testimony today from neighbors. I appreciate that. I think that we are I think that Mr. Byrd is proposing something that is not far removed from what was there previously. I appreciate his willingness to invest in the neighborhood and build multifamily, affordable multifamily, or attainable multifamily here in this neighborhood too. I think Lincoln can surely use that. So I will vote in favor of the proposal.
I concur. I think that this is a good project, and I appreciate the changes he's willing to make to the facade to make it fit the neighborhood standards even more than is, required. So thank you.
Dick?
I recognize that, that there is a parking difficulty in this neighborhood, but he, in his plan, is adding one more spot than what was there previously. And so I also will vote in favor of this.
Maya?
I would just concur with what's been said and add that there's an unmet demand for updated affordable housing in Lincoln in general and in this area in particular. I think this is a great way to enforce code and make sure that we have affordable housing that is good quality. I will support it.
I will also be supporting it especially because of the fire and again, with all of what my colleagues have said here.
I have nothing to add. I agree with you all.
This is one of those applications that are tough for me because I identify with the neighborhood side and I understand the concerns for parking and how hard it was for us to get the neighborhood design standards in place so that we didn't have slip-ins. But I also, from the planning side, I can't say no because he's putting in basically the same thing that was there to go back to, I kind of feel like to make this property whole what it was. So I will be supporting the project, but I do just want to get my, my concerns on record and say that I understand where you guys are coming from, and I wholeheartedly agree. All right, Jerry.
Okay, this is for the conditional approval of special permit 19003. Beckius?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Okay, next public hearing item is Comprehensive Plan Conformance 19001 to review as to conformance with the 2040 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan, a proposed amendment to the Lincoln Center redevelopment plan to add Willis Knight Lofts redevelopment project on property generally located at 1600 O Street. Staff recommendation is finding of conformance with the comprehensive plan. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on this item?
I don't see any. Mr. Landis.
Thank you. Members of the Planning Commission, this Urban Development Department Director, the applicant in this case, we would like to amend our downtown plan to amend it for the purpose of recognizing a project that we're working on and a project that we're pleased to be working on. This is the renovation of a historical building. It occupies this location, and this is the area that we are asking to be recognized by the project. This is the Strode building, historically significant. It has been, in fact, found in February of 2019 that it's designated a local landmark. That opens up the possibility of state and federal tax incentives for the work of renovating an older building, which is expensive work. The new uses, since it is now vacant, will be 5,300 square feet of commercial space on first floor, 16 enclosed residential parking stalls. That'll be on the first floor. And then 13 residential units at market rate on floor 2. Downtown residential is a very good purpose. The fact that it contains its own parking is a benefit, since B4 zoning really seems that the city will bear the responsibility for that. That we preserve a historical building and have an owner that really wants to do that as best as possible is very good. If you look to the comprehensive plan, you might remember that it speaks very encouragingly of the use of downtown residential. So that's right that's the heart of the plate, if you were. That's a fastball right over the plate. But we also want to maintain the historic character. That's in the plan, and this does that. It also supports downtown and O Street retail, which is part of our new downtown master plan specifications. So we think the amendment is appropriate. We hope the Planning Commission agrees with us.
Any questions for Mr. Landis? Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Houston. My address is 233 South 13th Street, Suite 1900 here in Lincoln. Appearing before you today on behalf of my client KC Partners Limited Liability Company, the principals of Eric and Carol Clark and Jeff and Sharon Kepke in the room with us today. This is called the Willie's Knight Redevelopment Project, and Willie's Knight has historical significance for this building and its automotive history. Director Landis has correctly characterized the uses that are going to be made of this building. The primary historical features that are being returned really deal with the windows. You saw that they were bricked up in the photograph. In all these upper story windows, this is the west elevation, and then this is the south elevation. The historically compatible windows will be inserted and as a part of the renovation of the project and really restore the building to its glory, along with tuck pointing of the facade and the preservation of that facade. The question in front of the Planning Commission today, obviously, again, is whether or not the amendment to the plan that we propose is consistent with the comprehensive plan. When I look at the staff report, I count 13 items that demonstrates consistency, and I won't go through those. The staff report also identifies consistency with the 2018 Downtown Master Plan. And one thing I did want to point out is this: I think this is the first installment of several installments we will see on O Street redevelopment. That is a catalyst project under the Downtown Master Plan. And I think that is indicative. It is unusual, I suppose, that it's this quick out of the gate, but this obviously was in process when the Downtown Master Plan was approved. But this project does certainly is consistent with the Downtown Master Plan and provide adaptive reuse of this historic building. And obviously it is consistent with the redevelopment plan. I wanted to point out a couple things on the cost-benefit analysis that's now that that's part of your examination too. You'll see that's it's a relatively smaller amount. We've calculated that the potential tax increment financing at approximately $250,000. And that's primarily because it's a renovation project. When you have a renovation project that has an existing tax valuation, we're only able to capture the incremental value above that. And we used a fairly conservative estimate of the projected valuation to really arrive at that tax increment financing sum. Now, obviously, there are impacts that have to be examined under the cost-benefit analysis. The impacts on employment, I think the only thing that we can see, this will be a job creator with a commercial space. The one thing I did want to point out, I think this, I just provide the floor plan showing the the commercial space that fronts O Street. I think it's going to be a very nice presentation and opportunities for sidewalk cafes, et cetera, that are along both 16th Street and O Street. And I also wanted to show that the secured parking area, I think, is going to be a real attribute for the residential units. The other impact under the cost-benefit analysis is really whether there's any impact under the school system. Obviously, these are small units. We think that there's nominal impact on Lincoln Public Schools, and because of the fact that these are not family-oriented units, they're more downtown dweller, probably young professional housing at that rate. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and I appreciate your consideration.
Tom, you don't consider this student housing then, or do you?
It's certainly not purpose-built student housing. Will students want to reside there? I think there's a likelihood, but I think all tenants are eligible, and it's not certainly designed for students, but I think it'd be a popular place for students because of its proximity to the university campus, obviously.
Okay.
Other questions for Mr. Houston? No?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Is that all of the applicant team there? Okay, so we're ready for testimony in support. Any testimony in support of this project? Okay. Testimony in opposition? None of that either? Okay. You guys have any more questions for staff?
No.
All right. Well, applicant, do you feel like you need to come back up for rebuttal then? Well, I'm not too surprised. Okay.
I don't want to contest what Director Landis said. I thought.
All right, well, I'll entertain a motion then.
Move conformance, Becky.
Second.
All right. Discussion.
I think it's plainly obvious that this project fulfills the specifications that we outline in the comprehensive plan, and in addition to the most recent downtown master plan as well. I'm looking forward to seeing the facade improvements on this project and seeing those windows come back to life, and this building generally come back to what its current and highest best use really really is today, given the structure that exists today. So I'll vote in support.
I'll support it too. I think it's gonna really change the look of that area and will be a catalyst, and I like it. I think it's a good project, so.
And I'll be in support. I think it has some real value there with making it a really nice entry piece into the downtown. Real exciting project, just like you said.
Yeah, it's going to be a wonderful project, and I'm going to vote in support, even though I was a 25-year-plus customer of the business that is gone.
Maya.
The reason I was late was I was driving from Omaha, having been on a trip, and I was listening to an audiobook called The New Localism on the drive here. And this is kind of timely because the book talks about like strategies for cities to be competitive in the global environment. And one of the main pillars is placemaking, and the recommended placemaking strategy is to use historic structures because of their connection to the community, and build on those. So that seems like a perfect example of what this is. So I will support.
All right. I think this is a great project. As a kind of an old historic building nut, I'm really excited to see this, and I am really excited to see those windows unbricked and kind of bring the building back to its glory days. All right, Jerry.
Okay, this is for finding of conformance. Beckius?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Okay, I'll be calling the next three associated items together. Item 4.2A is change of zone 19004 from I-2 Industrial Park District to I-3 Employment Center District. The associated use permit 19001 for a new I-3 Employment Center District use permit to allow for up to 90,000 square feet of commercial and industrial floor area on approximately 45 acres of land, and the associated street and alley vacation 19011 to vacate a portion of the North 84th Street right-of-way, all generally located at 4851 North 84th Street. Staff recommendation for the change of zone is approval. Staff recommendation for the use permit is conditional approval, and again, this is final action on the use permit unless appealed to the City Council within 14 days. Staff recommendation for the street and alley vacation is a finding of conformance with the comp plan. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these items?
I don't see any.
Rachel Jones, Planning Department. These are three related applications: a change of zone, a use permit, and a street vacation for development of property north 84th Street and Havelock Avenue. So we have the project area identified here, Havelock Avenue on the south, and it's adjacent to 84th Street on the east. And so the change of zone is from I-2 Industrial Park District to I-3 Employment Center District. And this property was annexed and zoned I-2 in 2015. And the change of zone to I-3 is appropriate since this would be a larger employer with the potential for some significant expansion on the site in the future. The current minimum acreage requirement for an I-3 zoning district is 50 acres, and there's a related text amendment 19001 on this agenda that would reduce the minimum down to 30 acres, which would allow this change of zone to go forward. In terms of this site plan, this would be an expansion of the user's existing presence on the site. There are several uses proposed under the umbrella of this single user, being the main uses being warehouse, office, retail, and restaurant, with an allowance of up to 90,000 total square feet. No waivers are being requested and the connections internally within the campus would be through private driveways. And then, in addition, a right turn lane would be installed in 84th Street at the entrance to the property. For the street vacation that's accompanying these applications, a portion of right-of-way for 84th Street would be vacated adjacent to the property shown here with the dotted line. And it is just an unused street stub that is not necessary to retain given the proposal that they have for the site development. So it would be vacated and included with the change of zone and use permit boundary. And so I will allow the applicant to go into some detail about the project, but I can answer any questions you have for me.
Dick?
Is there if you're going north on 84th, is there a median break there?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a median break and a left turn lane currently.
Any other questions for Rachel right now? I do have one for you, Rachel. In the report, you know, we talked about the I-3 and being an employment center. How do we define a large employer? Is there a certain amount of employees they have to have for that?
There isn't a definition per se for it. It's more of a case-by-case review. You know, we have, I think, 4 other I-3 districts in town. And so we're classifying it this way here just because of, you know, their kind of campus plan and their potential for expansion on the site given how big it is in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. We'll go ahead and have testimony from the applicant.
Good afternoon. Rick Annan with ENA Consulting, 7130 South 29th Street. Here on behalf of P3SP Inc. They are the developer on this project. The project is expansion of, there's an existing building there now, but they were trying to do, as mentioned, a campus type development. Adding an office building with approximately 23,000 square feet and a cold storage facility about 45,000 square feet. The nature of the business is for specialized beef distribution. They bring in quarters, cut them into steaks, yes, and then ship them out. And they're proposing, as part of the office building, there'd be a retail establishment and also a small restaurant. And so, you know, primarily cutting, packaging, and shipping is the nature of the work. They're estimating truck traffic, maybe 1 to 3 trucks a day, fairly light. Employees, I haven't been working directly on the office side, so I'm not sure. There's about 94 stalls that go along with the office building, so you kind of get a judge of how much capacity there might be there. In the warehouse side, they're estimating about 20 employees for that operation. There was some discussion in terms of the zoning change to I-3. One of the primary instigation for that was the desire for the restaurant, and then also some issues with liquor license related to that, and potentially they want to have the ability in the future possibly to do some off sale for some sort of a wine shop or something that might augment the retail. Change of zone, as was mentioned, was done in 2015 from AG to I2, and then it just seemed like the I3 was a better fit at this point, and that goes along with the text amendment that was approved earlier today, item 1.1. Also, as part of this, they're fulfilling some of the conditions of the annexation agreement from that 2015 arrangement. That includes the turn lane off of 84th and also a 16-inch water main along their frontage on 84th Street. I'll take any questions.
Do we have any questions for the applicant?
I have a couple of questions. I'm looking at the campus plan, and I'm curious where you think the restaurant might go, or the off-sale, or
The restaurant would be located in the office building. So would be in this structure here. And that's a fairly small square footage. I don't really recall what that is. I guess it's on my plan, but a couple thousand square feet, I think.
4,200, I think, is what including the kitchen.
The 94 parking spaces would not just be for employees, they would be for employees and customers of the restaurant or visitors to the office?
Correct. And there was some discussion in terms of, if they get the liquor license, there's some additional parking requirements that go with that. We'll kind of look at the entire campus from a parking perspective. I've been working with the planning department on that.
Okay, thank you.
Is the liquor permit consisting of both on sale and off sale, or just on sale?
I understand that they would initially be looking for on sale for the restaurant, with potential in the future of doing off sale, but they're not making that application at this time.
Other questions right now? Okay, thank you. All right, do we have any testimony and support? And I just want to remind everybody, this is for all three applications.
Good afternoon, Mark Falson, F-A-H-L-E-S-O-N, with the Rimbold Lutty Law Firm, 1128 Lincoln Mall. Both Anthony Arts and I from our firm are here today. We represent the applicant. If you have any additional questions, we'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Any other questions you guys have thought of?
And if you haven't had the certified Piedmontese beef product that will be produced and sold here, we would encourage you to do so.
It is delicious.
Yes.
Samples are always welcome.
Oh, yes.
And not expected. Oh, yes, thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other testimony and support? Okay, testimony in opposition? Do we have anyone that wants to speak in opposition of this project? No? Okay. Staff questions. Do you have any more questions for staff? No? Okay. Applicant, do you need to come up and say anything more? No? Pretty easy day today, I guess.
Wow.
We're not done.
All right. Well, I would entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve all three of the.
And I think we have to probably do them separate.
Do them separately?
That's
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
So I would move 19004 for approval.
Change of zone, okay.
Change of zone.
Okay, discussion. And we can discuss on all three at the same time if we want.
I'm excited about the project. I think that
I was expecting you to say you're excited about the product.
that too. I think it's always really interesting when we have the opportunity to expose customers to experiences, not only in terms of a production facility perhaps, but also a restaurant, and making sure that those complementary experiences can come together in one area, I think is really exciting. So I will support this project. I also think it's pretty exciting, especially for for North 84th Street, Northeast Lincoln as well.
I am going to support the project, and I think Tom said it right there. Thank you.
Any other comments? I too am going to support it. I appreciate the applicant's forward thinking and thinking, long term and getting everything kind of laid out right now so that we don't have to, come back all the time to add a little piece. We really appreciate that up here. Jerry?
Okay, this is for the approval of change of zone 19004. Beckius?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Okay, need a motion for conditional approval of use permit 19001.
Move approval, Beckius.
Second, Washington.
Any more discussion? Okay, Jerry?
Beckius?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0, and I would just note that this is final action on this use permit unless appealed to the city council within 14 days. And I need a motion for finding of conformance with the comprehensive plan for street and alley vacation 19001.
I'll move that, Washington.
A second, Campbell.
Jerry?
Okay, Beckius?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. I don't see any, so we are adjourned.
Very good.